back with 50 and 50. Huge thanks to Netix for their support in putting these videos together over the next. We're gone past the halfway mark. So, video 26 today, I'm going to talk about something that I suppose is becoming the foundation of the way I think about farming systems, and a little bit of an evolution of my thinking as well over the last 10 years. I've spent a lot of time thinking about animal health, and at a very basic level, up to understanding disease, to moving out to kind of looking at farming systems and what happens with them. And I talk about optimizing biology in farming systems. I was very lucky to do an Nuffield scholarship nearly a year ago now, and I really looked at the idea of animal-centered agriculture, putting the cow, it was focused on dairy, putting the cow at the centre of the industry, and how do we build that around it. And I'll come to that evolution over time. I suppose when I started looking at the value of disease prevention on farm, was really about looking at what happens in seasonal systems, be it calving or lambing or scanning or fertility, whatever it is, and what we could do in the months preceding that to influence better animal health and performance, and really looking at the yearly cycle on the farm. If it's lambing time, scanning time, breeding time, grazing time, what can we do to impact performance? What are our targets set out on the farm? What's the goals and the KPIs? But really looking at the seasonal system, particularly I did a lot of work with dairy farms on the dry cow period and how we could influence calving and better animal health that way. And then I suppose I went on, I started really trying to understand animals a bit better and looking at grazing systems, looking at animals indoors, and then obviously if you look at optimizing biology and behaviour, animals outdoors at pasture have a huge advantage. That's their natural environment they like to be in, not without its risks, but looking at the transition between the two, particularly focused in here. So what influences animal health as this thinking evolves? So I was very much looking at the strategies of vaccination, parasite control, and your typical veterinary medicine work that I would have started out doing. Then I began realising that feeding, husbandry, handling, management, all have a massive impact and role to play on disease management, and to separate out the two is very, very hard. The environment the animals work in, really, really critical. So indoors this becomes important. And then I realised that, and this is why I do my thought for today, and I probably do stuff a little bit different, is that people have the biggest influence on all of this, because the farmers themselves are making the decisions here with the experts and advisors that will influence how productive and how performance goes on farm. So people are really important, and of course farms not running well and challenges there will have a massive impact on people, a negative loop or negative impact on people and happiness in both the cows and the animals that they farm and themselves. So it's about, to me, it started evolving into optimizing normal biology and understanding, that these animals that we farm are herd species, that, and you heard me talk about painkillers and anti-inflammatories in sheep. They're animals of prey, they're precocious species, meaning they're waiting for the wolf. That will influence their behavior, that will influence, and even within their groups there's hierarchies and behaviors that we can understand. And I suppose throughout this process I've done a lot of self-education and learning and courses and different things in animal health. And I did cow signals, which for me was a huge building block again to add to my thought process. And looking at the cow signals diamond, again, feed. Not just the feed that goes in to meet the production demands of the animal, but how we deliver that feed to them and how easy and accessible it is. Water is a basic mineral, I cover that as well. Space for animals, really important. While outdoors at pasture, this is easy to optimize. Looking indoors, space becomes, to me, is a huge factor in animal health. Rest. Animals are ruminants, they like to lie down and ruminate, particularly your dairy, high production dairy cow, who's producing milk. What does she want? How much time does she spend lying down? Fresh air and natural disinfectant, again, so important. And then indoor systems light. So that's the cow signals diamond, and that really affected how I thought. And again, I try and keep things as simple as possible, but always trying to balance in all these infectious diseases. The amount of infection pressure in systems, that's the amount of bugs or bacteria or infection animals immune systems are exposed to. And on the other hand, we're always trying to optimize, build and maintain immunity. And that's where vaccination comes into farming systems to help and aid us there. So this is kind of the evolution of my thought process. Again, very much the ideas of other people as I tried to apply them to the farming systems that I saw. You know, if we look at optimizing normal behavior, and I did a lot of work on cows, obviously. Example of a cow, she spends her day, her 24-hour day period, in a very set way. She likes to do it. If she's milking, she likes to spend about 2 hours milking. So the less time she's milking, the better. The more time she's milking, the more time she's standing in yards, either before milking or after milking. Then when she's outdoors, she likes to graze for up to 13 to 14 hours. Then she spends a period of time ruminating, lying down. So looking at how she spends her day is really important. And then if you look at indoors, how do we optimize that? How does that change? And I have a really good, simple principle, and I think I talked to a lot of younger vets about this, is look through the eyes of the animals that we're farming, look at what they need, but most importantly, look. So if you're looking at your grazing systems now, what's the daily routine of the animal? Go through the daily routine. Where are the potential bottlenecks? And bottlenecks are really restriction to flow and the restrictions that can affect performance and cause stress. So really looking at cow flow in systems, looking how cows are spending their days. And then it has to be important to remember that animal-centered optimized biology is, of course, always paying attention to the fact that the people who are farming have to be part of this system, and it has to work for them. It has to be economically sustainable. Okay, and another big thing I'll say is when I started looking at farming systems, and I was very poor at this as a young vet, is actually looking at the animals. What are the animals, and this will be the cow signals principles again, what are the animals telling us about how their environment has worked for them? What are their behaviours? Are they seeking out air? Are they not lying down? Are they standing? You know, have they scoury backsides? Have they diarrhea? Have they scour? Have they lameness? What are they telling us about their environment? What are their udders like? What are sheep? You know, if you look at sheep, are they lame? Why are they lame? And that's always asking the question, why? So it's again looking at the system, looking at the animals and asking, why is this occurring? Again with disease, why is it occurring? What systems can we put in place to reduce it? And then as it went on, I suppose I evolved and I realised that, okay, people have a huge influence on animal health, and so human-animal interactions and animal handling become very important, because there's one word that I probably say a lot during this, or appears a lot, and that's stress. And we all know, but in humans and animals, that if we can minimise down stress, we make for healthier animals and humans. So looking at human-animal interactions, so first of all, I suppose anyone working with animals, understanding their basic needs, understanding their behaviours, and then the interactions with them at key times, particularly say if you're milking cows or handling ewes, that we can minimise that stress. And I came up with when I was doing Nuffield, some of the key the key attributes for good handling and or for stockmanship: consistent, calm, gentle, detail orientated, focused, good self-discipline, patient, quiet, predictable and motivated. Again, I'm not sure how many of them I would click off myself. So these things can be learned, we can work these things. And then in farming systems, when I started looking at them and I realised stress was an issue and I realised normal behaviour and optimising that was an important thing, I look at farming systems based on a stress gap, where the optimal biology of behaviours are, and look at the system on a day or a year or wherever it is, and look at the difference between where animals are and should be. And I call that the stress gap. I'm trying to reduce that down. Because for me, as I again evolved, I really think, and I suppose a lot of this may apply to dairy systems because that's where I've done a lot of my research and work in, is longevity. Okay, so if we get the right genetics for our systems, we're happy those systems work. If we can keep animals working and food producing animals are working in systems to produce animal protein, which is consumed by humans, we're in the business of human health, it's been said many times before. If we can keep animals in that system longer, we've better production, we've better profitability if we can manage this well, and we've more efficiency and less greenhouse gas emissions. So for me, a lot of this pulls together. So I suppose pre-coronavirus crisis and everything like that, I kept seeing all this negative criticism of farming as well, and I looked at what is the path forward. Now there's when you look at it at a very top level, we have so much food to produce for an ever expanding global population. So, and there is the arguments that the people really care about food. They've never cared as much and known as little. And I suppose now we're in a period where food security and just having food has been refocused into people's minds again. But the future will go back to people looking at farming systems and asking questions because of that gap between where they are and understanding where our farming systems and what we do, we need to bring people with us. And I think that will still be it. So I think this animal-centered approach, this idea of mine is very much bringing the cow to the center of the industry, bringing any animal into the center of what we do, understanding the behaviors of biology, because it's better for the animals, obviously, it's better for the industry, it's better for farmers. I think this works well when we reduce stress. So if you took away consumers completely, when you reduce stress and have animals working well in a low stress environment where we can meet their demands, particularly around biology and behavior, they're more productive and they're more profitable. And again, I think this is a story that consumers need to know and understand. And the big challenge will be how we link all this in with the environment, because the environment is going to be the big key driver post this crisis, I think, for farming, and we can do that, and I'm very confident we can. So it's really looking at a systems approach, and when I talk about disease, it's about understanding why it's occurring, what we can do to improve it, and that every bottleneck you remove, another one appears. That's the nature of farming. There's no perfect system, but it's always improving the system. Reducing stress down in animals. And I think, again, this is a very strong opinion of mine, that when we come out of this crisis and we look at all our food producing, how important food production is, how important human health is, there'll be a renewed focus again on One Health. There'll be a renewed focus on reduction of antibiotic usage in farm systems, and there will be a renewed focus on one welfare of animals, and the looking at animals in farming systems and the reduction of stress to prevent disease. And all of this has to be, all the foundations of this has to be farmer sustainability. These systems have to be profitable, and that's what I always work for, that it's not just about fluffy stuff, but it has to be economically sustainable and it works for farmers. And that's, I suppose, to me, a very brief overview of what I call optimizing biology and farming systems because we're coming to the past the halfway mark, just something to kind of ground people in, I suppose, the evolution of my thinking, and that's only some of it. And my thought for today is a simple one. None of this evolution or none of this thinking or none of the learning that I've done would be without the information and the research that people do in agriculture, whether it be from veterinary, animal health, nutrition. I'm just basically taking other people's information and trying to access it, put it together in ways that make sense to me. So, saying thanks to everybody for their knowledge, research, work and effort. That's my message for today. Happy safe farming, everybody.